There's a certain ache we carry through life, not the sharp, sudden kind, but something quieter. It's the anticipation of being heard again, of opening ourselves to someone or something, only to feel the sting of being misunderstood, dismissed, or left behind. So we armor up. We overthink before we speak. We hesitate before we feel, and we construct a subtle distance between ourselves and the world, hoping it might protect us from pain. But what if the reason we hurt so easily isn't because people are cruel or life is unfair, but because parts of us remain unhealed, unseen, and unknown? What if the world isn't hurting us? We're simply reacting to echoes within ourselves. You've been told to be stronger, tougher, less sensitive. But strength isn't found in hardening. It's found in understanding, and perhaps in clarity, not control. So here's the question. What if nothing and no one could ever hurt you again? Not because the world changed, but because you did. To understand how this is possible, we have to begin not with the world around us, but with what lives quietly inside. Because the pain we feel often isn't coming from the outside at all. It begins somewhere deeper, somewhere we rarely dare to look. Pain is a messenger, but most of us mistake it for an enemy. We feel betrayed when it comes, ashamed when it lingers, and desperate when it refuses to leave. We blame the world for our heartbreaks, for the moments of rejection, the subtle dismissals, the raised voices, the silences. But Carl Jung reminded us that what you resist persists, and perhaps what we are resisting most is the truth that pain does not originate in the external world. It is within us that pain takes form. The event outside, someone ignoring your message, a friend pulling away, a mistake at work, is only the spark. The fire begins in the stories we carry, the meanings we attach, the wounds we haven't yet healed. If someone says something cruel, it only truly wounds us when it hits something tender, something unresolved inside. Think about it. Two people can experience the same moment, yet only one is devastated. Why? Because one has an open wound, the other does not. It is not the world that cuts you, it is your readiness to bleed. This isn't to dismiss real harm. Some pain is unjust. Some experiences leave scars that take years to soften. But beyond the raw facts, there's a deeper terrain, the emotional interpretation of those facts. A harsh word spoken by a stranger might vanish from one person's memory, but linger for days in another's mind because it echoes an old voice, a familiar judgment, an internalized belief. And that echo is louder than the original sound. Pain, then, is not just what happens to you. It's what happens inside you. It's not just the breakup. It's what the breakup confirms about your worth. It's not just losing your job. It's the belief that you are no longer valuable. It's not just being ignored. It's the return of a feeling you thought you'd buried. And in this way, pain becomes familiar. It becomes a lens. You start seeing the world through it, expecting it, preparing for it. Even in moments of joy, you brace yourself. You detach before others can leave. You silence yourself before others can dismiss you. And slowly, the world begins to feel smaller, colder, less safe, not because it is, but because your inner world is shrinking. But what if that's not weakness? What if pain is simply pointing you home, to something within you asking to be seen? To change how pain moves through us, we must first understand what gives it such power. The answer doesn't lie in the conscious mind alone. It lives deeper, in the unconscious, the unseen layers of self that quietly shape how we feel, react, and live. And that's where we're going next. Most of what governs our emotional world lies far beneath our awareness. We imagine we're rational beings, making conscious choices, reacting to what's in front of us. But often, we're responding to things we don't even realize we've carried. Memories not fully remembered, beliefs absorbed in childhood, fears we inherited but never questioned. These form the architecture of the unconscious. Carl Jung called the unconscious the hidden majority of the psyche. And it's this hidden part of us that often decides how we feel before our conscious mind even catches up. We're hurt before we understand why. We're afraid without knowing what of. We withdraw from connection not because we don't want it, but because something deep inside associates vulnerability with danger. This is why a small comment can ruin your day, or why silence from someone you care about feels like rejection, even when it isn't. The unconscious doesn't work in language. It works in symbols, patterns, emotional impressions, and it constantly pulls from the past to interpret the present. When someone forgets to reply to your message, your conscious mind might say, "They're probably busy." But your unconscious, shaped by years of abandonment or invisibility, whispers something else: "You're not important." These unconscious beliefs are often formed early, sometimes without any specific trauma: a distant parent, a chaotic household, a teacher who never listened. Small experiences repeated enough times become internal truths, and these truths sit quietly within us, directing our reactions, shaping our relationships, creating patterns we can't seem to break. You might wonder why the same type of person keeps showing up in your life, why your relationships follow the same arc, why you keep sabotaging things that matter to you. It's not because you're broken. It's because your unconscious is running a script that was written when you were too young to know any better. And here's the most difficult part. Until it becomes conscious, the unconscious will continue to shape your life, and you will call it fate. But there's a kind of power in realizing this, because once you see the pattern, you can change the story, not by force, not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by sitting with it, listening, tracing it back, asking where it began. And in doing so, you start to untangle yourself from the past. You stop reacting to the present as if it were a repetition of your oldest wounds. This isn't easy. Looking inward rarely is. The unconscious is not just a container for pain. It also holds our creative instincts, our capacity for joy, our buried brilliance. But it's the pain that usually calls us in first. It's the discomfort that invites us to examine. And when we accept that the pain isn't just coming at us, but through us, we begin to reclaim agency. We stop trying to fix the outside world and start listening to the signals within. The unconscious doesn't want to be conquered. It wants to be understood. But understanding isn't enough. We often try to heal by endlessly analyzing, thinking, journaling, yet still feel stuck. Why? Because we're still avoiding. The next step is not intellectual. It's emotional. It's not about building stronger walls. It's about letting go of the need for walls entirely. And to do that, we must rethink what real strength looks like. Most people think strength is about defense, keeping pain out, staying composed, never showing cracks. We're taught to protect ourselves through silence, distance, and control. Don't let them see you cry. Don't let them get to you. These mantras form our emotional armor, and for a time they work. But what they protect us from is not only pain, it's connection, aliveness, vulnerability. We become experts at surviving, yet strangers to ourselves. Carl Jung didn't speak of healing as becoming untouchable. He spoke of becoming whole. And wholeness doesn't come from building walls, it comes from dissolving them. It comes from embracing even the parts of ourselves we wish weren't there. The sadness, the fear, the shame, the hunger for love we try to suppress. These aren't flaws to overcome. They're pieces of us asking to be included. Integration means you no longer reject any part of yourself. It means the inner child who once felt unseen doesn't get locked away, but is welcomed, comforted, understood. It means the anger that flares up doesn't make you bad. It becomes a signal to be decoded, not a threat to hide. It means the insecurity you carry isn't weakness. It's a doorway into something deeper. When you begin to integrate your inner world, something remarkable happens. You stop needing the world to treat you a certain way in order for you to feel okay. You no longer live in constant defense, because your sense of self is no longer fragile. It's rooted. You become less reactive, not because nothing matters, but because you no longer fear your own emotional response. This is the paradox. True protection doesn't come from resisting what hurts. It comes from accepting what hurts without letting it define you. You don't become immune by hardening. You become immune by softening into yourself so fully, so courageously, that nothing external can destabilize your inner knowing. Integration doesn't make life painless, but it makes pain meaningful. And in that meaning, we find a kind of invulnerability, not the brittle strength of resistance, but the quiet resilience of understanding. Still, there's one part of ourselves we most often leave in the dark, the part we fear, deny, or pretend isn't there. Jung called it the shadow. And unless we turn to face it, it will continue to shape our lives from behind the curtain. To become whole, we must bring light to what we've exiled. There's a part of you you'd rather not admit exists. It surfaces in jealousy, in rage, in judgment. It whispers thoughts you quickly silence. It wants things you've been taught are shameful. It remembers moments you'd rather forget. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the collection of traits, impulses, and memories we push out of conscious awareness because they don't align with how we want to see ourselves. But denying the shadow doesn't erase it. It only drives it deeper, and the deeper it goes, the more it influences us in ways we don't realize. Have you ever overreacted and later wondered, where did that come from? Have you hated in others what you secretly fear in yourself? That's the shadow at work. It's not evil. It's not dangerous in itself. What makes the shadow destructive is our refusal to acknowledge it. Because what we reject within, we tend to project outward. We see in others what we cannot face in ourselves. And when we're unconscious of it, the shadow becomes the silent puppeteer of our actions. But here's the truth Jung uncovered. The shadow holds not just darkness, but also power. Inside the shadow is your suppressed creativity, your forgotten confidence, your rightful anger, your passion, your instinct. When we hide these things, we also hide vitality. We become flat, overly compliant, emotionally restrained, not because we are calm, but because we are disconnected. To work with the shadow is to reclaim all the parts of you that have been left behind, not to act on every impulse, not to indulge every emotion, but to witness them, honestly, to say, I see you, I know where you come from, and I won't pretend you're not part of me. This requires courage, because the shadow is not comfortable to meet. You'll be asked to look at your envy, your pettiness, your hunger for control, your hidden need to be right. But in naming these things, they lose their grip. The monster under the bed was never as powerful as the fear of it. And perhaps even more frightening is what you'll find buried beneath the shadow, the pain of having been unseen, unheard, unloved in a way that still shapes how you live. The parts of you that misbehaved or broke down or got angry often just wanted to be held, not hidden. Shadow work is not about perfection. It's about integrity. It's about saying, I contain multitudes. I am light and dark, and I choose to face all of it, because wholeness matters more than performance. And as you bring light into these hidden corners, you stop being ruled by them. You begin to act from clarity, not compulsion. You become less reactive, not because you've tamed every emotion, but because you've befriended them. They no longer have to scream to be heard. But if shadow work is the descent, then individuation is the return, the re-emergence of the self, whole, aware, and connected. It's the process of becoming not what the world expects, but who you truly are beneath all conditioning. Let's explore how that unfolds. There's a quiet moment in every inner journey when you realize the person you've been trying to become isn't who you truly are. It's who you thought you had to be, based on approval, survival, belonging. But beneath all that is someone untouched, someone real. Carl Jung called the process of uncovering that person individuation, the path toward becoming a whole, integrated self, not a better version of your persona, not a polished identity, but the reunion of your conscious life with the truth that has always lived inside you. Individuation isn't about perfection, it's about reconciliation. It's bringing your intellect and your emotions into dialogue, your light and your shadow into partnership, your past into alignment with your present. And it begins when you stop chasing who you should be and start listening to who you already are. This path doesn't look heroic on the outside. You won't always feel brave. In fact, at times, you'll feel more uncertain than ever. But slowly, through each layer of awareness, a deeper presence begins to emerge. You start making choices not to please or protect, but to align. You stop reacting from fear and begin responding from wholeness. What's fascinating is that as you become more yourself, you also become more connected to others, because you're no longer relating through masks. Your compassion deepens, your boundaries clarify. You speak not to control, but to express. You listen not to fix, but to understand. And perhaps most importantly, you trust yourself. That trust doesn't come from always getting it right. It comes from knowing that whatever arises within you, grief, anger, joy, doubt, has a place. It doesn't have to be exiled. It doesn't have to be judged. It just needs to be heard. Individuation is not a destination. It's not a moment where you finally arrive. It's a rhythm of returning, again and again, to your own truth. In moments of stillness, in choices that feel honest, in relationships that reflect, not distort, who you are. And slowly, you realize you don't need to be protected from the world when you're no longer at war with yourself. There's a stillness that arrives when you stop running from yourself. It doesn't mean life becomes easy, or that others no longer hurt you. It means your inner world is no longer fragile. You know who you are. You've met your wounds, your shadows, your fears, and you've stayed. That is strength. Not the kind that hardens you, but the kind that softens you into something unshakable. Because once you see that pain is not your enemy, but your invitation, you begin to live differently. You no longer avoid silence. You listen in it. You no longer fear rejection. You understand what part of you it touches. And you no longer need the world to change in order for you to be okay. This is what Jung meant by transformation, not transcendence, not escape, but integration, living as someone who contains multitudes and is at peace with them. So maybe the real immunity to emotional pain isn't found in never feeling, it's in no longer being afraid to feel. And if you've made it this far, then maybe, just maybe, you're already on that path. If this resonated with something deep inside you, then you're not alone. This isn't just content. It's a quiet revolution, a remembering. So subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell. Not for updates, but to remind yourself, again and again, you were never meant to be untouched by life. You were meant to be whole.